sky glows an eerie red, a perpetual scar left by humanity's own hand. The world we once knew, a world of bustling cities, endless supplies, and boundless dreams, is gone. Replacing it is a desolate wasteland, where laughter once filled the streets, silence now reigns, interrupted only by the occasional distant rumble of collapsed buildings or the hollow howl of the wind. This is the world after the nuclear apocalypse, a world where survival is no longer a right, but a privilege. And privileges, they come at a cost. Clean water, uncontaminated food, life-saving medicines, things that were once taken for granted, have become rare treasures. Treasures traded in whispers and shadows. Yes, I'm talking about the black market, an underground economy born out of desperation and sustained by necessity. In this shattered landscape, it's no exaggeration to say that survival is a trade. And when survival is a trade, morality becomes a luxury. Let me paint the scene for you. Imagine the ruins of a once thriving city. Rusting vehicles line the streets, their windows shattered, their seats gathering dust. Graffiti-covered walls tell stories of the chaos that followed the blasts. And deep within these ruins, far from prying eyes, is where the black market operates. This isn't your everyday marketplace. There are no brightly lit stalls, no friendly vendors calling out their wares. Instead, there's a tense, almost suffocating silence. A mother clutches her child, scanning the area nervously. A man in tattered clothes approaches a trader, his eyes darting left and right. Each step he takes radiates hesitation, fear, because here, even the act of showing up is a gamble. Why? Because the black market is not just a place to barter goods. It's a theater of danger. Exploitation is rampant. The weak are preyed upon by the strong. Deals are struck not on trust but on desperation. A father might trade the last piece of jewelry he owns for a loaf of bread, only to find that bread is moldy, inedible. A young woman offers her only weapon for a bottle of water, only to realize it's contaminated. Trust here is as scarce as the resources themselves. Counterfeit goods are everywhere. Sugar pills sold as life-saving anti-radiation medicine, cans of food that have long since spoiled. Even water, something so basic, so essential, might be irradiated. A death sentence in disguise. Every trade carries the risk of betrayal. Every handshake, a potential setup. But deception isn't the only danger. To even reach these markets, survivors must traverse hazardous zones, areas still saturated with radiation. The once bustling centers of commerce, the beating hearts of civilization, are now radioactive wastelands. And yet, people venture into these places, risking sickness, even death, because the alternative, doing nothing, is worse. Imagine this. A man sets off from his makeshift shelter at dawn, his Geiger counter ticking ominously as he moves closer to the city. He knows the risks, knows that every step is a gamble. But his daughter is sick, her breath shallow, her fever relentless. He needs medicine, and the black market is the only place that offers even the slimmest hope. He arrives at the market clutching a small pouch of valuables, a silver chain, an old wristwatch, a faded photograph of his family. Items that once held sentimental value, but now represent his last chance at survival. He approaches a trader, an untrustworthy figure who examines the goods with greedy eyes. The man walks away with a vial of pills, but are they real? He has no way of knowing until it's too late. This is the harsh reality of the black market. Every transaction is a story of desperation, a story of sacrifice, a story of survival at any cost. But who are the people running these markets? Are they saviors or opportunists? Heroes or villains? The answer, as with most things in this world, isn't so simple. Some traders see themselves as providers, risking their lives to bring essential goods to those in need. Others are nothing more than profiteers, exploiting the suffering of others for personal gain. To some, they are lifelines. To others, parasites. One trader I spoke to described his work as a necessary evil. He transports food and medicine across radioactive zones, charging a steep price for his services. I'm not a saint, he told me, but without me, people would die. Another trader, however, was less remorseful. It's a business, he said with a shrug. If people are desperate enough, they'll pay. And what about the buyers? Their stories are no less harrowing. Parents trading heirlooms for medicine they hope will save their children. Elderly survivors offering everything they own for a chance at clean water. A young boy handing over his last can of food for a makeshift weapon to protect his family. These are the faces of the black market, faces etched with fear, desperation, and the faintest glimmer of hope. But let's not romanticize it. The black market isn't just a lifeline, it's a battleground. Every transaction is fraught with tension, every deal a potential disaster. Smugglers are often ambushed, their goods stolen, their lives ended. Buyers are sometimes tricked or even attacked after the trade is complete. And then there are the authorities, or what remains of them. In some areas, remnants of law enforcement still exist, attempting to crack down on these markets. But for every raid, a new market springs up in its place. The black market is like a hydra. Cut off one head, and two more take its place. This underground economy is more than a system of trade. It's a reflection of the world it exists in. A world where humanity's darkest and most resilient traits are on display. A world where survival isn't just about staying alive, but about holding on to some semblance of humanity. But at what cost? And this brings us to the question that haunts every trade, every deal, every story. What drives people to risk everything for these shadowy exchanges? Is it hope, desperation, or simply the instinct to survive? The answers lie in the stories of the traders, the smugglers, the buyers. Stories we'll uncover together as we dive deeper into the black market of the apocalypse. Because in a world where everything is a gamble, sometimes the biggest risk is simply doing nothing. The black market isn't just an economy. It's an intricate web of connections, risk, and survival. At the heart of this shadowy system are the traders, the lifeblood of the apocalypse economy. They are the ones who dare to tread where others won't, crossing contaminated zones, bartering with scavengers, and navigating the dangerous game of supply and demand. These traders come in many forms, each playing a vital role in the ecosystem of survival. Every successful black market has its kingpins, charismatic leaders who wield power with words and actions. They are the orchestrators, the ones who organize supply routes, manage deals, and maintain order in a world where chaos rules. One such figure is known simply as Silas. His name is whispered with a mix of respect and fear in the underground networks. Silas is a former logistics officer who turned his expertise into an empire. With his deep knowledge of supply chains and a ruthless streak, he commands a network that stretches across irradiated cities and desolate plains. Survivors say he has a knack for knowing exactly what people need before they even ask. Silas doesn't just trade goods, one source explained. He trades hope, but it comes at a price. If you cross him, you might as well dig your own grave. Then there are the smugglers, the unsung heroes, or villains of this underground economy. They are the ones who move goods through the most dangerous zones, navigating collapsed highways, flooded tunnels, and radioactive hotspots. These individuals are masters of deception, skilled in avoiding detection by scavengers, raiders, and the remnants of law enforcement. One such smuggler, known by the nickname Ash, operates in the ruins of what used to be a major metropolitan area. Ash is legendary for her ability to slip through enemy lines undetected. She once smuggled a shipment of anti-radiation pills across a zone so irradiated that her boots melted by the time she finished the run. It's not about bravery, Ash said in an interview. It's about knowing the risks and taking them anyway. Every step I take is calculated. I've seen too many people die because they didn't think ahead. Ash's survival tips are as pragmatic as they are chilling. Never trust a straight path. It's probably a trap. Always carry decoys, fake goods to throw off thieves, and never ever stop moving. But charisma and cunning alone can't sustain a black market. To keep order in a world without laws, enforcers step in. These are the muscle, the ones who ensure deals are honored and debts are paid. Their methods are often brutal, but in a world where betrayal is common, their presence is a grim necessity. One infamous enforcer is called Ironclad, a former soldier who now works for the highest bidder. His reputation is built on fear. Survivors tell stories of him walking into a crowded trading hub and silencing disputes with a single glare. People think I enjoy the violence, Ironclad said. They're wrong. It's just business. If I don't do my job, the whole system falls apart. Trust is fragile here, and sometimes a broken arm is the only way to remind someone of that. Behind these traders and enforcers lies an elaborate network of routes and trade hubs. These are not your typical highways and marketplaces. In the world of the black market, the paths are as dangerous as the destinations. Goods are often moved through abandoned subway tunnels, forgotten sewers, and overgrown forest trails. Some traders use old maps, meticulously updated to account for new radiation zones and collapsed infrastructure. Others rely on instinct and experience, trusting their gut to guide them through. One trader described a particularly harrowing journey. I was moving a shipment of water purifiers. We had to cross a bridge that was half collapsed. Below us, the river glowed. It wasn't water anymore, just liquid death. Halfway across, the bridge started to creak. We made it, but barely. Every step felt like a countdown. Trade hubs themselves are no less dangerous. Many are located in the ruins of old cities, places that once bustled with life but now echo with emptiness. These hubs are constantly on the move, their locations revealed only through whispered codes and encrypted messages. This secrecy is vital, not just to avoid authorities, but to stay one step ahead of raiders and rival traders. The traders themselves are a paradox. To some, they are saviors, risking their lives to bring essential goods to those who would otherwise perish. To others, they are profiteers exploiting desperation for personal gain. The truth, as always, lies somewhere in between. One trader put it bluntly, "We're not saints, but we're not devils either. We're just people trying to survive, same as everyone else." But survival often comes with a cost. Many traders carry the weight of their choices, haunted by the lives they couldn't save or the compromises they had to make. One smuggler confessed, "I once traded medicine to a man for his daughter's necklace. It was all he had left of her. I needed the necklace to trade for food for my own family, but that look in his eyes, I'll never forget it." To truly understand the black market, you have to hear the stories of those who live it. Take Lena, a former school teacher who now runs a small trading operation. She specializes in moving books and other items that provide a sense of normalcy. "People think food and water are the only things worth trading," she said. "But in this world, hope is just as valuable. A single book can remind someone of who they used to be." Then there's Victor, a trader who operates near a heavily irradiated zone. His specialty? Geiger counters and protective gear. "I sell survival," he said with a grim smile. "Not just for the body, but for the mind. Knowing you have the tools to face the world out there, it makes all the difference. The black market is more than a trade system. It's a lifeline, a battleground, and a moral gray area all rolled into one. For the traders, every day is a risk, a gamble with their lives and their consciences. They face radiation, betrayal, and the constant threat of violence, all for the chance to keep the wheels of survival turning. Their work is dangerous, their choice is fraught with complexity, but for many, the rewards, whether in goods, power, or the knowledge that they have helped someone survive, are worth dying for. And yet, as we delve deeper into this shadowy world, one question lingers. How far would you go to survive? For the traders, the answer is clear, but for the rest of us, it's a question that may not have an easy answer. In the unforgiving world of a nuclear apocalypse, survival is a relentless, unyielding pursuit. Amidst the ruins of civilization, the black market emerges as a shadowy lifeline, a place where desperation meets opportunity, and morality is often left behind. But what truly defines the black market are not just the goods being traded, but the stories of those who come to barter, buyers who carry with them burdens heavier than any physical currency. These are the faces of desperation, etched with hunger, fear, and the unbearable weight of impossible choices. She stood in the ash-choked air of the marketplace, clutching a small velvet pouch as though her life depended on it. Her clothes hung loosely on her frail frame, and her face was pale from exhaustion and malnutrition. Slowly, she opened the pouch to reveal a single golden wedding ring, its band worn smooth over years of love and use. Her hands trembled as she extended it toward the trader. "Is this enough?" she asked, her voice barely audible. The trader, a burly man with sharp, calculating eyes, examined the ring without a hint of emotion. For what felt like an eternity, he weighed the item in his hand before nodding. In return, he handed her a small bottle of murky water. She clutched it to her chest, her relief overshadowed by the knowledge of what she had lost. In the black market of the apocalypse, transactions like these are as common as they are heartbreaking. Buyers come with treasures from their past, heirlooms, photographs, even the clothes on their backs, hoping to trade them for the bare essentials of survival. But in this world, the price is never just money. For parents, the black market is a double-edged sword, a place of last resort, and their only hope. Imagine watching your child's body weaken day by day, their breath shallow, their eyes dull. I imagine knowing that medicine might be out there, within reach, but at a cost that could leave you with nothing. One such parent, Malik, shared his story. His 6-year-old daughter had fallen ill, her body racked with fever and chills. Malik had already sold everything he owned, tools, jewelry, even their last few cans of food. But the medicine the trader offered required one final sacrifice. "I had nothing left except my boots," Malik recounted, his voice heavy with guilt. "They were the only thing keeping my feet safe from the contaminated ground. But what choice did I have? I gave them up, and I prayed that it would be enough to save her." For Malik, the trade bought his daughter a few more weeks of life. But at what cost? Without his boots, every step he took was a new wound, a new risk of infection. "I wonder if I made the right decision," he said. Because in the black market, survival always comes at a price. Water, the very essence of life, has become a luxury item in this post-apocalyptic world. A single bottle can mean the difference between life and death, and buyers are willing to part with almost anything to get it. Mira, an elderly widow, approached a trader with a small wooden box. Inside was a silver locket, tarnished but still gleaming faintly. She hesitated before handing it over. "This was my mother's," she said, her voice quivering. "It's all I have left of her, but I need water." The trader took the locket and inspected it with a practiced eye. "Not enough," he said flatly. Mira's face fell, but she didn't argue. Instead, she reached into her bag, pulling out a threadbare shawl and a hand-carved figurine. Finally, the trader relented, handing her a single bottle of water. "I lost everything in that trade," Mira said later, tears streaming down her face, "but at least I'm still alive. For now." The ethical dilemmas buyers face in the black market are crushing. Every choice feels like a betrayal of their values, their past, or even their humanity. Arjun, a former teacher, found himself standing in a dilapidated trading hub, clutching a small cache of canned food he had scavenged. His daughter needed a radiation suit to make the journey to a safer zone, and a trader was willing to offer one, but only in exchange for all the food. "I hesitated," Arjun said. That food could have kept us alive for weeks. But without the suit, my daughter might not make it through the next day. He made the trade, his hands trembling as he handed over the cans. We survived the journey, he said, but the hunger changed us. It made us into people I don't recognize. The stories of buyers in the black market are endless, each one a testament to the lengths people will go to survive. A young boy traded his toy car, a gift from his late father, for a handful of rice. A mother handed over her wedding dress for a single syringe of antibiotics. An elderly man gave away his only blanket, shivering through the night so his grandson could eat. One particularly haunting story comes from Tara, a woman who had already lost everything. Her husband had gone missing in the chaos of the initial blasts, and all she had left of him was a photograph, faded and worn from years of handling. When her son fell ill, she traded that photograph for a small bottle of medicine. I told myself it was just a piece of paper, she said, her voice breaking. But it wasn't. It was him, and now he's gone, in every way that matters. For buyers, the black market is a place of impossible choices. It forces them to confront the limits of their morality, their dignity, and their humanity. Every trade is a story of sacrifice, a piece of their past given away, for the hope of a future. But survival in the black market isn't just about what you're willing to give up. It's also about what you're willing to endure. Betrayal is common. Buyers are sometimes cheated, their goods taken in exchange for items that are counterfeit or useless. A can of food turns out to be empty. A vial of medicine is nothing more than colored water, and yet they keep coming back, because in a world as harsh as this, the black market is often the only option. In the nuclear apocalypse, the black market isn't just a place to trade goods. It's a place where people come face to face with their own desperation. Every deal struck, every item bartered, is a story of loss, of sacrifice, of survival. But the truth is this: in the black market, the price is never just money. It's memories, it's dignity, it's the very essence of what makes us human. And for those who have nothing left to give, it's a reminder of just how far they've fallen and how far they're willing to go to survive. So I ask you this: what would you trade to stay alive? And when the trade is done, will you still recognize the person staring back at you in the mirror? In the aftermath of the nuclear apocalypse, survival hinges on a handful of critical resources: clean water, uncontaminated food, anti-radiation pills. These are no longer just commodities. They are lifelines, treasures worth more than gold or any currency that once held value. The black market thrives on this scarcity, its veins pulsing with desperation and the relentless search for survival. Let's talk about the goods, their value, their dangers, and the stories they tell. In this barren world, every item has a story. Every can of food, every bottle of water, every pill represents a chance to live another day. But among all the goods traded in the shadows of the black market, a few stand out as the most coveted. These small, chalky tablets are a lifeline in a world where radiation is an invisible predator. Known colloquially as rad tabs, they can't undo the damage of exposure, but they can slow it down, buying survivors precious time. One trader explained their value simply: you can go without food for a few days. You can stretch water if you're careful. But radiation, it doesn't wait. If you're exposed, you need pills. No pills, no chance. A single dose of rad tabs can fetch a price that's almost unimaginable. Weapons, heirlooms, even entire stockpiles of food. And yet, people pay it, because the alternative is unthinkable. In the post-apocalypse, food is a luxury. Most of the crops that once fed humanity are now poisoned by radiation. Survivors scavenge what they can, but uncontaminated food is almost impossible to find. Canned goods are the gold standard. A single can of beans, if confirmed safe, can sustain a small family for a day. Rice, dried meats, and preserved fruits are also highly valued. But the problem with food isn't just its scarcity, it's its safety. Many buyers have fallen victim to contaminated supplies, their hopes dashed as the food they fought so hard to acquire turns out to be a death sentence. Water, the most basic of necessities, is now the rarest of treasures. The rivers, lakes, and reservoirs that once quenched humanity's thirst are poisoned. Their once clear surfaces now shimmering with a deadly glow. Clean water has become a currency in its own right, traded drop by drop in a world where every sip matters. One survivor shared her story. I traded my mother's wedding band for a single bottle of water. It kept me alive for another day, but the price was more than I could bear. In the black market, traditional currency is worthless. Bills and coins might as well be scraps of paper in a world where survival is the only thing that matters. Instead, value is determined by utility, scarcity, and desperation. Every transaction in the black market is a negotiation. A can of food might be worth a handful of ammunition. A bottle of water could fetch a working flashlight or a sturdy pair of boots. But the value of an item isn't fixed. It fluctuates wildly depending on circumstances. For example, a man trading in a dry zone might find water to be priceless, while in an area where rain recently fell, its value might drop. A weapon might be worth little in a peaceful enclave, but could command a fortune in a region plagued by raiders. Everything is relative, a trader explained. What's priceless to you might be worthless to someone else. It all depends on what you need. Desperation skews value in the black market. Buyers often find themselves trading far more than an item is worth, simply because they have no other choice. A father with a sick child might offer his last can of food for a dose of medicine. A woman dying of thirst might trade her only weapon for a single drink. One trader described it bluntly. It's not about fairness. It's about need. The more desperate you are, the higher the price. But in a world as ruthless as this, not every trade is what it seems. Counterfeit goods flood the black market, preying on the hope of those who have no other option. Rad tabs are among the most counterfeited items in the black market. One buyer shared a chilling story. My brother was sick. He'd been exposed to radiation, and we didn't have much time. I traded everything we had, tools, food, even my coat, for a vial of pills. The trader swore they were real. I gave my brother the first dose, and for a moment I thought it was working. But within hours he got worse. The pills were fake, and by the time I found out, it was too late. This story is far from unique. Counterfeit pills, diluted medicine, and mislabeled bottles are common in the black market. Buyers are often too desperate to question the authenticity of what they're given, and the consequences can be fatal. Food is another frequent target for deception. Traders might relabel spoiled or irradiated goods as safe, selling them to unsuspecting buyers. One family bought what they thought was a safe stash of canned peaches, only to fall violently ill after eating them. The trader who sold the cans was long gone, leaving the family to suffer the consequences of their misplaced trust. The black market is a place of constant tension, and not every deal ends smoothly. One such exchange, recounted by a survivor, illustrates just how dangerous these transactions can be. It began like any other trade. A buyer, desperate for rad tabs, approached a trader in a hidden market deep within the ruins of a city. The trader demanded a high price, a working flashlight, a knife, and a can of food. Reluctantly, the buyer agreed. The exchange was quick. A bottle of pills handed over in return for the goods. But as the buyer inspected the pills, something seemed off. The bottle was unmarked, the pills smaller than usual. Suspicious, the buyer confronted the trader. "What is this?" he demanded. "These aren't real." The trader, realizing he'd been caught, panicked. A scuffle broke out, drawing the attention of others in the market. In the chaos, a weapon was drawn and shots rang out. When the dust settled, the buyer lay dead. The pills scattered around him. "They weren't even real," one witness said later. "He died for nothing." The goods traded in the black market are more than just items. They are symbols of survival, of hope, of the lengths people will go to in order to stay alive. But every trade carries a risk. Counterfeit goods dangerous exchanges, and the crushing weight of desperation turn the black market into a place where survival comes at a steep cost. And yet, for many, it's the only option. In a world where resources are scarce and the future is uncertain, the black market represents a lifeline. A fragile, dangerous lifeline, but a lifeline nonetheless. So, as we delve deeper into the workings of the black market, one question remains. How much are you willing to pay for survival? And when the trade is done, will it have been worth it? In the chaotic aftermath of the nuclear apocalypse, law is not a shield, it is a shadow. What was once a robust system of order has fractured, reduced to scattered remnants, clinging desperately to the ideals of control and justice. But those remnants now find themselves pitted against a force they cannot truly extinguish, the black market. Here, the remnants of law enforcement and governance struggle to impose order on a lawless economy. It is a battle fought in the shadows where trust is scarce, betrayal is common, and survival outweighs morality. This is the story of the law's futile battle against the black market and the shadow it casts on all who dare to engage with it. The remnants of law enforcement operate with a fraction of the resources they once had. Gone are the fleets of patrol cars, the organized stations, the endless supply chains. What remains are small, scattered groups, militias, ex-police officers, and self-proclaimed guardians, trying to restore order in a world that no longer values it. Their primary target? The black market. For these authorities, the black market is a double-edged sword. It breeds corruption, violence, and chaos, undermining their fragile attempts to rebuild society. Yet, paradoxically, it also sustains the very survivors they aim to protect. This creates a moral quagmire where every decision feels like a compromise. One former officer, now a leader of a small militia, described the black market as both a curse and a necessity. We raid these markets because we have to. They're illegal, dangerous, and they destroy any sense of order we're trying to create. But the truth is, without them, people would starve. They'd die of radiation poisoning. We know it. They know it. But we do it anyway. Despite their efforts, the black market persists. Every raid, every crackdown only temporarily disrupts operations. Within days, sometimes hours, new hubs emerge, new routes are forged, and the trade continues unabated. For every raid, another market rises from the ashes, the officer said. It's like trying to drain the ocean with a spoon. The relationship between traders and law enforcement is a constant game of cat and mouse, played out in abandoned cities, forgotten tunnels, and remote wilderness areas. Traders rely on secrecy, mobility, and an intricate network of informants to stay ahead. Markets are hidden in plain sight, abandoned warehouses, crumbling subway stations, even the back rooms of seemingly innocuous shelters. Routes are carefully mapped to avoid detection, often weaving through the most dangerous zones to deter pursuit. One trader, known only as Ghost, shared her survival strategies. You can't get comfortable. Never use the same route twice. Never trust anyone completely, and always assume you're being watched. Law enforcement, in turn, employs informants, ambush tactics, and raids to disrupt the market. But their success is limited. An infamous raid in a once thriving metropolitan area highlights this dynamic. Authorities intercepted coded messages revealing the location of a major market. They moved in swiftly, surrounding the area and cutting off escape routes. The raid was brutal, resulting in dozens of arrests and the seizure of large quantities of goods. Yet within days, a new market had sprung up just a few miles away. Traders who had escaped spread the word, warning others to stay vigilant. You can't kill the market, one trader said defiantly. You can only push it somewhere else. In the black market, betrayal is as common as desperation. Informants play a crucial role in the cat and mouse game. Their loyalties often dictated by fear, greed, or survival. One such story involves a trader named Victor, who was betrayed by someone he considered a close ally. He came to me, desperate for medicine, Victor recounted. Said his daughter was sick and he needed help. I gave him a good deal. Hell, I even threw in extra supplies. And then, a week later, my market was raided. Victor survived the raid but lost everything. His supplies, his network, and the trust he had worked so hard to build. I found out later he'd been working with law enforcement, Victor said bitterly. They promised to keep his family safe if he gave them information. I can't blame him. But it doesn't make the betrayal hurt any less. Informants are often caught in impossible situations. Many are coerced into cooperating, their families threatened if they refuse. Others see an opportunity to gain favor with authorities or eliminate rivals in the market. One buyer turned informant shared her experience. I didn't want to do it, she said, her voice trembling. But they found out about my son. They said if I didn't give them the location of the market, they'd arrest him. What choice did I have? Her information led to the raid of a small market hub. Several traders were killed, and the market was destroyed. I hate myself for it, she said, but I had to protect my son. I'd do it again if I had to. While some law enforcement officers genuinely aim to protect survivors, others see the black market as an opportunity for personal gain. Corruption is rampant, with many officers turning a blind eye to market activities in exchange for bribes or access to scarce resources. One trader described an encounter with a corrupt officer. He stopped me on the road, said he knew I was carrying supplies. I told him it was just food, nothing dangerous. He said he'd let me go if I gave him half. I didn't have a choice. If I refused, he would have taken everything, or worse. This gray morality extends to the buyers as well. Many rely on the black market for survival, even as they condemn its existence. A mother buying medicine for her child might report the market's location to authorities if it means securing additional resources for herself. It's a vicious cycle, one buyer explained. We hate the market, but we need it. And the law? They're no better. Everyone's just trying to survive, no matter what it takes. The battle between law enforcement and the black market takes a toll on everyone involved. Traders live in constant fear of betrayal and capture. Buyers face the risk of getting caught in raids or being labeled as criminals for their involvement. And law enforcement officers, even those with good intentions, must grapple with the futility of their efforts. One officer admitted to feeling conflicted about his role. I've arrested people for trading food, water, medicine, things everyone needs to survive. I tell myself it's for the greater good, but sometimes, I don't know. It feels like we're punishing people for trying to live. At its core, the relationship between the law and the black market is one of fear and power. Traders fear the law, knowing that every deal could be their last. Law enforcement fears the traders, recognizing their growing influence and the danger they pose to any semblance of order. And buyers fear both, caught in a system that offers no real safety, no real hope. There are no heroes here, a survivor said, just people trying to survive. The black market is never truly safe, not for the traders who risk their lives to keep it running, not for the buyers who depend on it for survival, and not for the law enforcement officers who fight a losing battle to shut it down. In this shadowy world, trust is a liability. Alliances are fragile, and every decision carries the weight of life and death. The market operates in the spaces where morality falters, where desperation takes hold, and where survival comes at a cost. As we delve deeper into this world, one thing becomes clear. The black market is a system that cannot be controlled, only endured. Because in the black market, the only certainty is danger. The market is never truly safe. For anyone, the black market operated in the margins of humanity's downfall. A labyrinth of shadowy alleys and hidden rooms, it thrived where daylight couldn't reach. The apocalypse hadn't just stripped the land of life. It had stripped people of certainty, leaving behind only questions. What would you trade for a single bottle of clean water? The broker, a veteran of this clandestine world, mused aloud as he packed his wares. His face, lined with age and moral conflict, bore witness to years of impossible decisions. What about a loaf of bread, a vial of medicine, and what if it's for someone you love? Every transaction in the market was a negotiation with the self. The traders knew it, the buyers felt it, and the goods told their own stories of hope, sacrifice, and desperation. The broker paused, holding a necklace that had passed through his hands that morning. A delicate piece, likely treasured by its former owner. It was now reduced to a currency for survival. When survival is the goal, he said, his voice heavy with weariness, morality becomes a luxury. Traders, despite their hardened exteriors, were not immune to the emotional toll of their work. Marta, a young trader known for her sharp instincts, was a rising figure in the underground network. She had scavenged supplies from the ruins of a pharmaceutical plant, a treasure trove in a world where medicine was more precious than gold. But tonight, as she sat alone in her shelter, she was consumed by guilt. There was a kid, she began, her voice trembling as she recounted the previous day. His dad came to me with nothing but a family photo and a plea. He begged for medicine. I knew the pills were expired, but I sold them anyway. Marta's hands fidgeted as she spoke. What else could I do? If I didn't, someone else would have, and I needed food for myself. She buried her face in her hands, but that doesn't make it right. Her words echoed in the silent room, a stark reminder that even survival had its casualties. Every trade feels like losing a piece of my soul, she added softly, her voice barely above a whisper. How much more can I give away before there's nothing left? Buyers, too, bore the weight of their choices. In the corner of the market, an older man named Anwar cradled a tarnished silver locket, the last possession tying him to a life before the devastation. I traded my wedding ring for a loaf of bread, he said, his voice thick with emotion. It wasn't enough to feed my family, but my daughter, she was starving. Anwar's hands trembled as he turned the locket over in his palms. Every time I look at her, I wonder, was it worth it? And what will I have to give up next? His story was tragically common. Buyers often came to the market not out of choice, but necessity. A mother bartered her heirloom jewelry for a single dose of medicine. A young boy offered his scavenged treasures for a sip of clean water. Each trade carried a hidden cost, one that lingered long after the deal was done. Survival, the most basic of instincts, demanded a steep price in this desolate world. It wasn't just goods that were traded in the market. It was trust, dignity, and humanity itself. Lila, a woman in her 30s, stood at a trader's stall, clutching a necklace adorned with a small, tarnished pendant. It had been her mother's, the last keepsake of a life she barely remembered. The trader, a grizzled man with a scar running down his cheek, studied her with a mix of pity and pragmatism. This, he said, holding up a vial of water, is all I can offer you for it. Are you sure about this? Lila's eyes burned with resolve. My mother would want me to survive, she replied, her voice steady. She pushed the necklace into his hands and took the water. The trader nodded, his expression unreadable, and turned away. Her story wasn't unique. Each transaction was a gamble, a fragile thread between life and death, and in the black market, that thread was frayed and worn thin. Yet, even amidst the darkness, glimmers of humanity persisted. In the ruins of an old community center, a group of survivors had created a small refuge. They called it the Circle. Here they shared stories, resources, and rare moments of connection. Vikram, a former school teacher turned trader, handed out scraps of salvaged paper and broken pencils to the group. Write your stories, he urged. One day, someone will need to know what we endured. A woman named Aisha, cradling a malnourished child, smiled faintly. Hope, she murmured, is the only thing we don't have to barter. These moments, though fleeting, were a testament to humanity's resilience. They reminded everyone that even in the bleakest times, people could still find ways to connect, to share, to dream. What would you sacrifice to live one more day? This question, posed by Vikram during a late-night gathering, lingered in the air like smoke. For the survivors, it wasn't a rhetorical question. It was a daily reality. Some traded their possessions, others traded their principles. A few traded their lives. The broker, who had joined the group for the evening, leaned forward, his face illuminated by the flickering firelight. "The black market isn't just a place," he said. "It's a mirror. It shows us who we are when everything else is stripped away." His words struck a chord. Marta, sitting nearby, nodded slowly. "Sometimes," she added, "I wonder if we'll ever forgive ourselves for the choices we've made." As the night deepened, the conversation turned reflective. The survivors spoke of the lives they'd led before the apocalypse, the dreams they'd had, the people they'd loved. In the quiet moments, their stories painted a picture of resilience, not just of the body, but of the spirit. The broker, gazing into the dying embers of the fire, offered a final thought. "When the apocalypse ends," he said, "the black market will still exist. It just won't be underground anymore." His words, though pragmatic, carried a glimmer of hope. Humanity had endured, adapted, and survived, and in doing so, it had proven that even in the darkest times, the light of human connection could never be fully extinguished. The industrial complex was a crumbling relic of the old world, its skeletal remains jutting out against the bleak, ash-filled sky. Broken windows reflected the dim glow of the irradiated horizon, while rusted metal creaked in the biting wind. This was neutral ground, a place agreed upon by all parties, though neutrality held little meaning in a world ruled by desperation and betrayal. The stakes couldn't be higher. A water purifier, the size of a small generator and capable of processing gallons of irradiated water, was to be exchanged for a rare cache of anti-radiation medicine. Both items represented life itself in this unforgiving landscape. The purifier could sustain an entire community, while the medicine was the only barrier between a slow, agonizing death and survival for those exposed to radiation. Despite the agreed terms, an air of distrust hung thick. Survivors knew that even the simplest trade could end in bloodshed, and this exchange was far from simple. As the first party arrived, a convoy of weather-beaten vehicles with armed escorts, each step felt like an eternity. Elena, the smuggler, a woman hardened by loss and betrayal, her face bore the lines of 100 deals made under duress. She had once been a nurse, back when the world had order, but now she was a trader of life and death, ferrying precious resources through the wasteland. She carried a pistol strapped to her thigh and a knife hidden in her boot, her sharp eyes scanning for danger. Marcus, the buyer, a father of two, Marcus represented his small makeshift community. His youngest daughter was already showing signs of radiation sickness. The dark circles under his eyes betrayed sleepless nights filled with dread. He carried a satchel filled with items his group had scavenged and sacrificed for: heirlooms, ammunition, even a few gold coins. They were all symbolic of the life they once knew, now reduced to bargaining chips. Rogan, the enforcer, hired to ensure that the deal went smoothly. Rogan was a towering figure with a face obscured by a respirator mask. His reputation preceded him, a mercenary who operated without allegiance to anyone but himself. His calm demeanor masked an unpredictable ruthlessness. Behind these central figures lurked others, scavengers hoping to profit from scraps, informants looking to curry favor with rival factions, and a lone observer perched on a high beam, their silhouette barely visible in the dim light. The two groups approached each other cautiously, their boots crunching on the cracked concrete. Elna's crew unloaded the purifier from the back of a truck. The heavy machinery glinting faintly under the moonlight. On the opposite side, Marcus's group began unpacking the medicine, small weathered containers lined neatly on a makeshift tarp. "Show me the goods," Elena demanded, her voice sharp but steady. Marcus gestured to the containers. "This is everything we could find. Every vial counts." Elena's second-in-command stepped forward, inspecting the medicine with a portable scanner. The soft beeping filled the silence, each beep a potential countdown to conflict. After a moment, he nodded. "Looks real." Marcus shifted nervously as Elena gestured toward the purifier. "Your turn." As Marcus inspected the purifier, Elena's team kept their hands near their weapons, eyes darting to every shadow. The atmosphere was electric, charged with the unspoken knowledge that a single misstep could ignite violence. Just as Marcus confirmed the purifier's authenticity, the faint sound of rustling echoed through the complex. The groups froze, their weapons snapping to attention. "Ambush!" someone shouted. Chaos erupted as gunfire lit up the darkness. A third party, a ragged group of raiders, armed with scavenged rifles and makeshift armor, stormed the scene. They had been tipped off about the trade, likely by an informant looking for a cut of the spoils. Elena's crew fired back, their bullets ricocheting off metal beams. Marcus's group scrambled for cover, clutching the medicine like lifelines. The purifier, now forgotten, sat exposed in the crossfire. Rogan, who had been unnervingly calm throughout the ordeal, suddenly turned his weapon on Elena's group. "Sorry, sweetheart," he muttered. "Business is business." The betrayal cut deeper than any bullet. Elena, gritting her teeth, ducked behind a rusted container as Rogan fired indiscriminately. She could feel the weight of the situation pressing down on her. Years of navigating the black market had taught her to expect betrayal. But this was calculated, and it stung. Nearby, Marcus clutched his injured leg, blood pooling beneath him. Despite the pain, his trembling hands never released the satchel of medicine. I can't let this go," he muttered through gritted teeth, his voice thick with desperation. A young scavenger, no older than 16, tried to grab a fallen vial of medicine. A bullet caught her in the side, and she collapsed with a choked gasp. Her hand outstretched, she whispered, "Please, I need this." Before her voice faded into silence, amid the carnage, Elena's second-in-command fell to Rogan's betrayal, his lifeless body slumping against the purifier. Elena felt her resolve harden. She wasn't just fighting for survival now. She was fighting for revenge. As the raiders closed in, Elena reached into her jacket and pulled out a smoke grenade. "Cover your eyes!" she shouted to Marcus and the remaining survivors. She hurled the grenade into the center of the firefight, filling the area with a thick, choking cloud. In the chaos, Elena grabbed Marcus, hauling him to his feet, despite his protests. "You want to save your daughter? Move," she growled. Together, they staggered toward the edge of the complex, the sound of gunfire fading into the distance. The purifier was gone, claimed by Rogan and the raiders, but Elena managed to secure a portion of the medicine, enough, she hoped, to make their sacrifice worthwhile. As Elena, Marcus, and the surviving members of their group retreated into the night, their breathing ragged and their spirits battered, a chilling sight stopped them in their tracks. Far in the distance, under the faint glow of the radioactive horizon, a line of vehicles approached. These weren't raiders. These were organized, heavily armed, and moving with precision. Elena squinted, her heart sinking. "That's not a rescue party," she muttered. Marcus clutched the medicine tighter, his eyes filled with dread. "Who are they?" The group watched in silence as the convoy grew closer, their lights cutting through the darkness. The scene faded to black, leaving the audience with one haunting question. When survival becomes a trade, who decides the price? The desolation of the post-nuclear world stretches as far as the eye can see, a barren landscape of skeletal trees, an irradiated soil. In this stark environment, Humanity's resilience has proven to be both a marvel and a curse. The black market, born from this resilience, is a monument to the unyielding will to survive. It is a system that thrives on necessity, where every trade is steeped in desperation and compromise. For Elena, the events of the trade linger in her mind. The smoke, the gunfire, the faces of those who didn't make it, all are etched into her memory. As she sits in the dim light of a flickering campfire, she wonders, how did it come to this? The black market has become more than an underground economy. It is the lifeblood of a fractured society. But at what cost? The black market operates on a currency of desperation, where value is fluid and constantly shifting. Traditional notions of wealth, money, gold, jewels, hold little weight. Instead, the measure of value is tied directly to survival. A single bottle of clean water can hold more worth than a chest of gold. A loaf of bread can decide the fate of a family. In this world, barter is not just a method of exchange. It is a language, a culture, a way of life. Everything has a price, but that price is rarely fixed. It depends on the needs of the trader, the scarcity of the goods, and the power dynamics at play. A child's toy, once a symbol of innocence, might now fetch a meal. A handmade necklace might buy a few vials of anti-radiation medicine. Yet this economy is not without its pitfalls. Stories of counterfeit goods and deceitful trades abound. Traders dilute medicine to stretch their supply, risking lives in the process. Food is laced with mold or radiation, sold to those too desperate to question its safety. The black market has no rules, no guarantees, only the grim reality that the strongest, and sometimes the cruelest, survive. At the heart of the black market lies a paradox. It is a system that both sustains and exploits. A lifeline for the desperate, but also a breeding ground for greed and manipulation. For every act of kindness, there are countless acts of betrayal. Hope is perhaps the most dangerous and valuable commodity of all. The black market thrives on it, feeds off it, and weaponizes it. Buyers enter negotiations with trembling hands and hearts full of hope. Hope for a cure, hope for another day, hope for a miracle. Elena recalls the faces of the buyers she's dealt with, each one a portrait of desperation. A mother who traded her last family heirloom for medicine, only to find it was fake. A scavenger who offered his only weapon for clean water, only to be ambushed on his way home. In the black market, hope is a double-edged sword, capable of sustaining life or cutting it short. For all its darkness, the black market is also a testament to humanity's unparalleled capacity to adapt. When the world's systems collapsed, people built new ones. They created hidden networks, forged trade routes, and developed unspoken codes of conduct. In the absence of law and order, survivors found ways to rebuild, even if their methods were grim. The black market's success lies in its complexity. Routes are mapped not on paper, but in memory, known only to a select few. Deals are brokered in whispers, sealed with handshakes, or the exchange of bullets. Even in a lawless world, there is a strange sense of order, a set of unwritten rules that govern transactions. Yet, these networks are fragile, always one betrayal away from collapse. Informants, raiders, and rival traders constantly threaten their existence. And for every trader like Elena, who strives to maintain some semblance of morality, there are others who exploit the system for their gain, perpetuating a cycle of greed and suffering. Despite its brutality, the black market also reveals moments of humanity, a trader giving extra food to a starving child, a buyer sharing their medicine with a stranger in need. These small acts of kindness, though rare, are reminders that even in the darkest times, the spark of empathy endures. Elena remembers a trade where she met an elderly man who had nothing left to barter but his stories. He spoke of his family, his life before the apocalypse, and the love he had lost. Moved by his words, she gave him a loaf of bread and a small flask of water, refusing his meager offerings. In a world ruled by survival, such gestures are acts of rebellion against despair. The black market is more than an economic system. It is a mirror reflecting humanity's greatest strengths and weaknesses. It showcases our adaptability, resilience, and ingenuity, but also our capacity for greed, exploitation, and cruelty. It is a microcosm of the world that existed before the apocalypse, stripped of pretense and laid bare. Elena often wrestles with the moral complexities of her work. Is she a savior, providing resources to those in need? Or is she a profiteer, capitalizing on the desperation of others? The answer, she realizes, is not so simple. Survival blurs the lines between right and wrong, forcing everyone to make choices they would once have deemed unthinkable. As the world begins to rebuild, or perhaps continues to decay, the black market's role is likely to evolve. Even in times of prosperity, underground economies have always thrived, driven by scarcity, inequality, and the human desire for more. The apocalypse has merely amplified these forces. Elena envisions a future where the black market continues to exist, not as a relic of the apocalypse, but as a permanent fixture of human society. As long as there is disparity in access to resources, as long as some people have more than others, there will always be those willing to trade, exploit, and survive. The question, then, is not whether the black market will end, but whether humanity will learn from its existence. Can we build a world where such systems are no longer necessary? Or are we doomed to repeat the same cycles of greed and exploitation? Elena watches the horizon, the distant glow of the approaching convoy still etched in her mind. She thinks of Marcus, of the raiders, of the scavenger girl who died clutching a broken vial of medicine. Each life lost, each choice made, feels like a weight pressing down on her. As she walks away from the trade site, the wind carries the faint sound of distant voices, the echoes of survival. She knows that the black market will persist, fueled by the same forces that drive humanity forward: hope, desperation, and the will to live. Her final thought lingers, heavy with meaning. When survival is the only currency, who truly pays the price? The screen fades to black, leaving the audience with a haunting, thought-provoking question. When the apocalypse ends, will the trade for survival ever truly stop? If you enjoyed this video, please like and share it so more people can experience it too. And if you have any suggestions or feedback, don't hesitate to drop a comment below. We'd love to hear from you. Also, make sure to subscribe to the channel because your support is what drives us to create more amazing content. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.